This is the third in my series documenting the reality of creating a rather ambitious 25-minute animated film using AI. And this episode is where it all takes off because it's my first real experience of AI image generation, or what I'm calling casting. Now, I've had a vague image in my head of my characters ever since I wrote my book, Farmer Chris Moss, years ago. So it's a bit of a shock to finally meet them. But then AI doesn't give you exactly what you've imagined. It gives you something else. And sometimes that something else is better. Think like a director in a real life casting. You have an idea of how the character looks, and then an actor walks in and changes your perception completely. And at that point, you have two choices. You learn to accept it, or you change it. Then there's the technical side to creating your characters. I mean, how do you do that? As a complete rookie, and especially at my age, I found most of the online how-to videos talk as if you're already familiar with the terminology, and I wasn't. But then this series is about me learning AI filmmaking as I go along. It's my understanding at this point in the process. And now that I have my cast, I don't know right now how I progress. But I'll find out and I'll report back in my next video. Only a few weeks ago, I was confusing the platforms, such as Midjourney, with the models, like Seedream. Now that's all pretty clear to me now, so if that's the sort of thing that you're struggling with, I explain that as best I can towards the end of this video. But I'd like to introduce my cast and show you not only how I created them technically, but also how I came to accept them emotionally. Because these are the characters I'll be working with over the next few weeks, so therefore it's important for me to get this bit right. Well, I first had to choose which AI platform to use, and I've no idea if any are better than the others. So using the free trial credits that most of the major platforms offer, I tapped in similar prompts for my lead actor, Chris Moss, a British farmer in his late 50s or early 60s. First, I tried Higgsfield. I'm not sure if this guy is the right age. Leonardo? Nope. No. I got a few images from Polo AI, but again, not quite right. And although these were a bit more realistic, I quite liked what I got back from OpenArt, so I signed up with them on a monthly subscription. Now, I'm not saying that the other platforms weren't right, but at some point, you just have to dive in and start playing around. Ultimately, I think it's a case of pick a platform, any platform, and then start learning how to use it. But don't be afraid to fail at first. And if you sign up on a monthly basis, you can always leave and try a different platform. For $29, about £22, I got 12,000 credits, which sounds a lot, but it isn't. In fact, I bought an add-on pack with a further 5,000. Now, still, images don't cost many credits, but when you get an image back from your prompt, and prompting is the key to AI generation, it'll almost certainly need editing. Well, that's more credits, and you may need several edits, so that's where it can all get quite costly. But if your goal is to shoot a movie, why make a still image in the first place? Well, the answer to that is consistency. It's obvious to humans, but it's not to the AI algorithms. You know that the character in shot 1 should look exactly the same in shot 2. Same clothing, same lighting, same features. But the AI generator doesn't know that, and there's a chance your character will change completely from shot to shot, or at least the shape of their nose or their hair color will change. So when you start prompting for your video clips, you need to give the model a reference image, a character board which shows your characters from different angles and with different emotional expressions. So what surprised me most? Waiting for your image after prompting is strangely exciting because you just don't know who's going to walk through the door. But it can also be disappointing when you spend a load of credits only to get an image that's either wrong, again, or it hasn't really changed very much. And I'm fast learning there's an art to prompting, and you'll improve over time, but there will always remain an element of luck. And the biggest surprise is when you're presented with a character you simply didn't expect. Your instinct is to reject it, but that's where you should stop and think. It may not be what you asked for, but that doesn't mean to say it's wrong. And I found myself putting a character aside for a day or two and then coming back and thinking, yes, maybe I was wrong and this is right. Until you're fairly well versed in prompting and you've learned to describe the subject, the action, the environment, the cinematography, the style, and the technical, I don't think it wise to tackle the lead characters. Oh, and don't worry too much about obeying this structure. The enhanced prompt will do it for you automatically. You just need to give as much detail as you can in the basic prompt box. There's also a means to get accurate prompts using something called Claude. But again, I'm a rookie and I don't really know enough about that at the moment other than give you its name. Now, once you have your style, cinematic, realistic, fantasy, or in my case, 3D animated characters, and you're happy with the result, you should use the same instruction for all your characters. So I decided to tackle the lesser characters first, saving the leads until I'd got more experience. And I'm planning on doing the same with the film itself. An opening shot needs to be fairly spectacular, so my early practice efforts should be used in a later scene, and I'll tackle the important stuff when I have a bit more experience. Okay, here's the result I got from a prompt of one of my minor characters, and when I look at the prompt, it's given me pretty much what I asked for, although I've no idea where the walking stick came from. However, as you can see, she's pretty realistic, and I wanted a 3D animation figure, but I forgot to mention that. Easily done, so it's good practice to carefully check your prompt before you click generate. So in this situation, you can start again, or you can try out a different model, or you can edit the image. I asked for more of a 3D Pixar style, and it gave me this. Still not quite what I wanted. And this threw up a secondary problem. This character is the sister to one of the leads, so there needs to be some similarity, both in their features and style. And this is where it starts to get a bit fiddly, because you're not simply adjusting one image to suit your taste. You're trying to get a uniform style across the entire cast. Her sister, Pauline, the mum of the 3 children, went through a number of iterations from realistic to overly animatic. And I found myself trying to get the sisters and the children to look as if they're the same family and the same animated style. It got even weirder when I tried to get an idea of height, because the children differ in age by 5 or 6 years, but I couldn't get a sense of scale. And if I simply asked for shorter, I'd get the same image back, but with a bigger head. In the end, I managed to put them all together in front of their house, and I was happy enough with this. I didn't want to tinker with it any further. The AI generators tend to make everyone younger and more attractive than you might want. Pauline is a hard-working mum in her mid-40s. Fine to be attractive, but I wanted some realism. She should be tired, her hair a bit unruly, but AI argued that her hair should be perfect, and she looked far too young to have children in the first place. Also, whilst it's true, most farmers and the vast majority of rural Britain are white, I didn't have to specify this. The AI engines assume you want a good-looking, young, attractive white cast. If you want a black person, we have to specify that, as I did for my crane driver. He went through a fair few changes too. My story, Farmer Chris Moss, is about a farmer who gathers a team of horses together to look like reindeer. So, my cast list includes 7 horses. And famously, AI can struggle a bit with horses, and here are a few examples. Some of these were, well, there was something a bit out, but I couldn't say exactly what it was. And sometimes you get an image that you know straight away is just wrong. But getting the texture and proportions right is tricky. It's a matter of taste. And again, I don't have enough experience to make that call between realism and animation. And would these horses match the style of the humans? I figured I could always make changes later, if they're clearly not working. My early prompt for Randolph asked for a very heavy, old, large, tired Shire horse in 3D Pixar animation style. And the model gave me this. I knew that it wasn't quite what I was after, but it illustrates the art of prompting. Where do you go from here? Well, you could simply regenerate, or you can try a different AI model. That may be enough. Or you can ease back on the prompt a bit. Maybe he's not quite so tired. But again, I was getting results that didn't jump out at me. After making a few small edits, I got him closer to what I was after. Again, I can't be sure if he's too realistic, and it's hard to tell with a plain background, but A more animated prompt made him look a bit too plastic. So I tried to get a balance between realism and animation, and I think perhaps by default this will be the overall style of the film. And then I asked him to be a bit muddy. Not quite that muddy. If you add something like mud on your character board, or anything that could change, a hat, spectacles, the generator may assume it's part of the character, and there will always be the same bit of mud on his legs, so I figured it's just best to clean him up. And in the end, Randolph appeared. He just seemed about right. I have no idea if I can make him talk yet. I've still got so much to learn. But I tried a bit of test video. Not perfect by any means, and I must make sure the aspect ratio is right in every prompt. That's a surefire way to waste several hundred credits. So now I have a storyboard for each of the horses. My goal was to differentiate them so that they're recognizable, whilst keeping them in the same sort of reality. And so I returned to my lead character, Chris Moss. I spent ages on him, sometimes forgetting the 3D prompt and getting a realistic person. But eventually, someone comes up and you think, can this be him? Is this Farmer Chris Moss? But it's not quite right, or it doesn't quite fit with the other characters, so you ask for the same, but with wider eyes. No, not that wide. Tone it down a bit. Okay, that's not so bad. I'd then put this one aside for a while. The problem is he's just too tidy, and I'd like him to be a bit taller. Slightly tubbier. Now, once you get down to subtle refinements, you find the disappointments are greater. I spent ages trying to get his nose the right shape and size. And then again, I had to keep some consistency with his family. It doesn't work if he looks real, but his wife looks plastic. And so you find you're adding reality to one character and reducing it a bit in another. Again, I asked for a picture of the Moss family together in front of a farm. And so it went on. I made a profile board for each character, adjusting and readjusting, trying to get the right balance. So that's casting done with, or I could come back later to make some changes. It's important you download your references and make sure you organise everything. Now, I've spent a long time on casting, far longer than I'd intended, but that's always the way. Everything takes longer than you expect. And I still have to make boards for the locations in the film and the props. My fear is that it is now the start of June, and I've got a few things coming up that will take me away from the project. But I want to get this film completed in good time for Christmas. And I'm trying to remain positive and, in the spirit of the theme, maintaining a belief that it may even have an audience. But if it doesn't, at least I can't wait to see it. So now I have to crack on with animating these characters and the process of creating the clips. And I hope to report back on my progress fairly soon. But I did promise you my expert view on platforms and models, and specifically the difference between them. Well, this is how you actually get the AI imagery made, and until recently it was all a complete mystery to me, but this is my current understanding. Well, there are several major AI platforms to choose from, and depending on which YouTube video you watch, one or another is promoted as the best. And at first I thought all AI filmmaking sites were basically the same, but they're not. First of all, you have to be careful not to confuse the AI platform, the sites that you can sign up to, OpenArt, Runway, Higgsfield, Midjourney, etc., with the models or the generators, the actual AI algorithms that do the magic. Seedream, Kling, Veo, Nano Banana, etc. And there are lots of them. And starting out, this is very confusing because when creators talk about using AI, you don't know which specific AI generator they're talking about, and each tend to specialize in slightly different things. Think of the platforms like shops and the generators or models like products. Sometimes the same products are sold in different shops, whilst other shops might specialize in the limited or own brand range. And a good analogy for the bigger platforms is a supermarket, because you can choose which supermarket you want to go to. Higgsfield or OpenArt are probably the biggest, but Krea and Magnific are on that list as well. The AI model is the product, and most of the supermarkets carry the same products. Think of Kling as cornflakes, Seedream as Seabream. Nano Banana is, well, you get the idea. Midjourney, Runway, Luma and Kling are all more specialist shops, as they tend to build and sell their own products. Runway, for example, is a platform like a shop, but it sells its own brand products, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, etc. It's a bit of a minefield and things are changing all the time, but this is my understanding at the moment. And it doesn't really matter which platform you choose when you're starting out, as they all have slightly different uses, and you won't really know which works better for your project until you get into a shop and investigate some of the products. My project is to create a long animation, and it's important that the characters and locations remain consistent. Now that's different from someone creating a 15-second cinematic promo or a photograph. So I turned to my old mate ChatGPT, who recommended I use OpenArt to create the characters and then Runway to make the film. Don't ask me why, but well, so far at least I've taken that advice. Because the thing to cling on to, and no pun intended, is that OpenArt and Higgsfield can pretty much do it all. So I think either of those are a good place to start. And for no specific reason, I chose OpenArt as my training ground. Now, as I start to investigate the animation process itself, what I'm calling principal prompting, I have to take a look at Runway and see if I can figure out how that works. I'll let you know how I get on, especially if you subscribe. Now, there's more about all of this on my website. Go to channelian.com and search out the blogs on animation and Farmer Chris Moss. Anyway, thanks for watching and bye for now.